Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's having a great evening. Hope you had a great week. And let's dive right into the Parsha. Okay, so last week we talked about Hanukkah, so we're going to have to do a little bit more background on the Parsha. So what happened in last week's Parsha was that Yosef becomes the viceroy, the second in command to King Pharaoh. He interprets the dreams of Pharaoh that there's going to be a famine, there's going to be years of plenty, followed by years of famine. So he tells Pharaoh we got to save food, and eventually, because of that, the whole world goes into famine. Egypt is the place to be. Yosef's brothers, come to Egypt. They don't recognize him. He starts this whole big back and forth about where you say you have another brother. Where is he? Maybe you're lying to me. So you got to bring the brother, right? And Joseph is testing his brothers to see how they're going to act with his brother. Are they going to act like brothers, essentially? So Joseph, eventually, in this week's Torah portion, he's confronted by Yehuda, and he's saying, like, hey, we're willing to go to war for our brother, and Yosef has no choice, and he's happy to reveal himself to his brothers. I am Yosef. Is my father still alive? Right? So that's how the Parsha sort of finishes with, and eventually what happens is that we'll get into after Yosef reveals himself, right, and he tells his brothers, well, listen, I reveal myself to you. You now know that I am the king, essentially, of Egypt. You guys are in famine in the land of Canaan. Why don't let's bring my father and the rest of the family to come and to live permanently in Egypt. I'm going to give you a place, or you could keep your cattle. I'm going to give you opportunity to be successful. And that's what ends up happening, right? Yaakov comes to Mitzrayim 2 years into the famine. So what ends up happening is that Yaakov agrees, right? He agrees to go, but not before he consults God, right? Yaakov consults God. So even though previously Yaakov had gone into Galus, right? He had gone into exile, right? He left his father's house. He leaves Beersheba, we talked about it a few weeks ago, and he goes to Haran, to his uncle Lavan, where he eventually marries and has a family. But this is a little bit different, because in this case, not only is Yaakov going as an individual, he's going, the entire Jewish nation is going, right? His entire family. So now he's taking it a little more seriously, and he realizes that this is a galus, this is an exile. And in fact, our sages tell us that all exiles are called by the name Mitzrayim. They're all called by the name Egypt because Egypt is the essential exile. So what does God say to him? God says to Yaakov in chapter 46, verse 3, Altira merda Mitzrayim. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, right? So it makes sense. Yaakov was afraid, right, to go down to Egypt. So God says, don't be afraid. And specifically, Yaakov was even more afraid because his father had a very different life experience than him, right? So what happens? Yaakov goes, and before he consults, how does he consult God? He brings a sacrifice. So it says, that Jacob offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. Why his father Isaac? Why not the God of Abraham? Why not the God of Abraham and Isaac? Why not the God of his father? Why his father Isaac? Right? It's a double expression. So, but the truth is that what he was trying to say is, why am I different than my father Isaac? Isaac never left the land of Israel, right? Even when there was a situation where there was famine, right? God tells Isaac, don't leave the land of Israel, right? You're too holy to leave the land of Israel. And Isaac, he was such a powerful influence that he could actually affect change outside of the land of Israel through being in the land of Israel, right? So in other words, his spiritual goals of refining the world, he didn't have to leave and go find the things that needed to be refined. They came to him on their own, right? That's how powerful Isaac was. So Jacob is essentially asking God, why am I different? Why can't I just stay in the land of Israel? I shouldn't go into exile with my whole family. Let me stay here, and therefore, right, just like my father did, and we'll still be able to accomplish. So God says, don't be afraid, right? This is your service of God. This is what you got to do. And our sages tell us that actually Jacob really deserved to, even if he had to end up in Egypt no matter what, and he could have went in chains, right, as a prisoner, just like his son Yosef did, right? But God did him a favor and he gave him a respectable manner of going. So there's a funny story that's similar to this, that there was a chassid once who went to his Rebbe and he asked him, "What should I do for business?" In the Soviet Union. So his Rebbe said to him, "Why don't you go and start a business in Siberia?" He said, "Siberia? Why am I going to go to Siberia? It's crazy, right? Siberia's in the middle of nowhere. There's no people there. Business is probably not that good." So he decided he's not going to listen, and he stays in the interior of Russia. And a few years later, sure enough, he gets a knock on the door. The KGB is after him for who knows what. It didn't take much, and they sent him to Siberia. So he said, "Now I understand what the Rebbe wanted. He wanted that I should go. I had to end up. He saw that spiritually, I had to end up in Siberia. But so he gave me an option to go that wouldn't entail so much hardship. He said, just go, start a business, right? But instead, I had to go. I didn't listen, so I had to go, right? So that was kind of what happened to Jacob, right? That God gave him this opportunity, so he took the opportunity to go, not against his will, but go b'simcha, right? Because he's serving God. So when you're serving God, it says in the Tehillim, right? Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha, you should serve God with joy. So he goes with joy. And then, but now, why? Why is he going, right? So God says to him in the next verse, he says, "Ki l'goy gadol asimcha sham, I will make you into a great nation," right? Specifically through going down to Egypt, that's what's going to make him a great nation. That's going to be the catalyst to make him into a great nation, right? And God says, and in that verse, I will also bring you up. Okay, but the Hebrew is Anochi elcha gam alo. I will bring you up again, essentially. That's how you say it in English, but it's actually twice. The word aliyah is twice, right? That there's two times that there's an elevation, right? After the exile. That's what God promises Jacob. So what is that referring to? That is, not only is there going to be the redemption from Egypt, right? Where it says that God brought us out from Egypt, right? He elevated us, but there's going to be another one. Another elevation, that's after the final exile, right, with the coming of Mashiach. So that's the final elevation. Okay, so the question is, why does there have to be? Okay, so there has to be an elevation, right? There has to be growth. Question is, why does it have to come through exile? So we can understand this by this idea of olive oil. Coming from Hanukkah, we discussed olive oil a lot. So what is olive oil? There's an olive and there's oil. The olive is a separate entity than the olive oil. What's the problem? That the olive oil is stuck in the olive, even though it's two different things. So the oil is there, and all you have to do to get it out is you have to crush it, right? You crush the olive, and the oil comes out. It's a separate entity, right? It's not the olive. You're trying to get the oil. You don't create the oil by crushing the olive. You just release the oil. And the same thing is by galus, right? That galus, that exile, is that we, through exile, through the crushing of exile, we could bring out what's hidden in there. So there's a well-known teaching of the Baal Shem Tov that it says in the verse, that you will be for me a Eretz Chayfetz, which translates literally as a desirable land. Okay? So the Jewish people are referred to as a desirable land. What does it mean we're a desirable land? So the Baal Shem Tov explains that a Jew is desirable. A Jew has desirable things in it, just like the earth, right? Covers over the many minerals and treasures and diamonds and gold mines, all the things that are in the earth, right? There's a tremendous amount of opportunity in the earth, but it's covered over by the earth. So to a Jew. A Jew has within him treasures, right? He has goodness and kindness and Torah and mitzvahs, and you just got to dig a little bit deeper, right? And bring it out, and you'll be able to find it. Even in somebody who just looks like they're dirt, right? And this is what galus is, right? Galus is that when you come to the lowest level, that is what will bring you up, right? By specifically going to the dirt, right? So for, like, again, using this agricultural example, if you take seeds, take apple seeds, you take grape seeds, whatever kind of seeds you want, and you put it in a beautiful vase, a golden vase, nothing will grow, right? It looks beautiful. And you can put it on your shelf, and you can stick it in a museum, but nothing, right? Nothing will grow. So how does it grow? Is you take it into the earth, right? And in the earth, right, that's where you'll have growth, right? You'll have, all of a sudden you have a tree, and that could produce fruits, which could produce more trees, right? And so on and so forth. And this idea of going into the earth is also connected to bittul, right? To nullifying oneself, right? To being humble. Okay. So we also have another saying from the sages as follows. From Tractate Megillah, it's also one of the 12 psukim that children say. 12 psukim and saying of our sages that as follows. If a person says, I worked hard and I did not find success, do not believe it. If he says, I have not worked hard, but I have found success, do not believe him. If he says, I have worked hard and found success, then you believe him. So this idea, right, is that, what do you mean? How can you say that? How can you say that a person says, I didn't work hard, but I had success, you could believe him? You can't believe him, I'm sorry. Why can't you believe him? There are people who things are easy for them, right? They're very smart, they understand things better, they're just naturally lucky or successful, they have certain character traits. But the truth is that what the word in this saying of our sages is matzasa, that you found something, right? It means successful means that you found something that was beyond yourself. So yes, it's possible that a person could study Torah or study something or go to business, whatever it is, and things are just easy for them. But he's not finding his true potential. All he's finding is, like, you know what they say, low-hanging fruit. In order to find something, go beyond oneself, that requires effort. So, and this is what exile is, right? That specifically through the Jewish people going into exile, that would allow, right? That would allow the Jewish people to come to a great elevation, right? To grow from hardship. So, and again, another saying of our sages, according to the hardship is the reward. So we see here that from this week's Parsha and this whole idea of exile, right? And Jacob was afraid of exile. He wasn't really looking forward to it. But within the crisis, right, of the hunger, within the crisis of losing his son and now finding his son, and almost losing his son Binyamin, and almost going to war with Egypt with his sons, right? And all the terrible things that happened that led to this moment where the Jewish people are now going into Egypt, in those, there was a tremendous opportunity, right? What this ends up leading to, the Jewish people becoming a nation that's going to receive the Torah, become an eternal nation, become the chosen nation of God. So when we come across hardships in life, right, we could say either, okay, this is terrible and it's miserable, and God is just punishing me, He hates me, right? People say that all the time. What God has it out for me? No. What really, you might not understand it. You might understand it for 210 years until the Jewish people come out, right? But we know, just like God told Jacob, that there's going to be the elevation out of Egypt. God also told Jacob there's going to be another elevation. It's going to be a coming of Mashiach, right? That there's a purpose to everything. That we're going to come out of it not just the same, right? We're going to come out, barely alive. We're going to grow from this, right? So in every minor challenge, when the person has their own individual exile, that challenge has to be looked at. What is my opportunity here, right? Where is the growth that I could find within myself? How can I be a better person than I was yesterday? So, but God should give us everything that we need. We should see the growth in our challenges, and we should see the growth without challenges as well. And wish everybody a good Shabbos. We'll see you next week.